future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Judy of Dr. Judy WTF, and this show is live, and it is a call-in show. The topic is sex addiction and working your way out of sex addiction and coming back home. And we're continuing our case study with Max, and we're going to be mind mapping his process, and we're looking at panel number 456. And we did 1, 2, and 3. So for those of you who haven't seen 1, 2, 3, check it out. It's posted up there on UBN Radio, YouTube, Dr. Judy WTF. And just a little bit before we get started, I completed my first mind map group, September 14, 15, 16. Well, ended up in the hospital on the 16th, but made it through. And I am doing really well, and I just want to give a special thank you and acknowledgement for all the people who flew out and drove out and showed up at the Psychological Healing Center. And I thought the group was absolutely phenomenal. It was a very intense way of doing the mind map therapy because each person adds so much insight to the mind map process. And although everyone's issues are different, at the core of us, we're really the same. And we all suffer from some form of a hole in the soul. We all have symptoms that are born out of cause. And we are going to be doing a lot of mind mapping. And I'm going to wait for our caller, Max, to call in at any moment. In the meantime, we are going to be taking calls tonight. We may be taking less calls because we have a lot of work to do in terms of mind mapping, the chaos that ensues from the fallout of sex addiction and the defense mechanism of sex addiction and how that works, and then the ultimate breakdowns that occur as a result of sex addiction. So Max, call in any time. And in the meantime, I want to talk a little bit about what is sex addiction. So for those of you who suffer from sex addiction, you know very well that the highs are high and the lows are low. And it is like a drug because there's a lot of dopamine and brain chemistry that's released in the process. And unfortunately, it has an addictive quality. So like a rat chasing cheese, it ends up being a circular thing whereby you're chasing the high and then the low hits, and then you've got to go back up again and chase the high until the low hits. And it becomes really, really painful for the individual, and it becomes a process of what I call the Freud, the repetition principle. It's not a pretty picture. And it's really, really painful because the person feels hooked into a system gone wrong. And so for those of you who are not familiar with the mind map, let me get it up there and you can see for yourself the process of the mind map, which is a from, through, to model. From wounds of childhood, which there are 5 of, basically emotional abuse, physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, then there is neglect and smothering. And how we are treated blueprints us and creates reactions in us that therefore then encode into the fiber of our being into very cracked lens of perceptions on ourselves and the world. And I think we have Max on the line.
Hi,
Hi, is this Max?
this is Max.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to continue the process. And just a little bit of an update. How are you doing since our last conversation, which was a few weeks ago? 3 weeks ago, I think we
Yeah.
started this process. Yeah, and how are you?
Uh, I'm okay. I won't say I'm good, but I'm okay.
Okay. And so let's just really quickly review so that those of you who haven't watched episodes, panels 1, 2, and 3 can kind of get a review on it. So in essence, Max, what do you remember to be your main childhood wounds?
Um, Abandonment,
Abandonment.
um,
Okay.
uh, uh, sexual abuse, verbal
Okay.
abuse,
Okay.
um,
Abandonment by mother, father,
by father,
by father.
um,
Okay.
and maybe a little bit by mother as well, and neglect,
Okay. Neglect.
uh,
Okay.
as
And
well as some. We didn't address this on the last show, but there was, as far as mother, there was smothering as well.
okay. And also you mentioned, for those of you who don't know, Max is gay, and so one of the things that we're tracking is his just his level of attachment with people. So Max, so being that you have been abandoned and that you have not been in a loving, correct, attached
Right.
relationship, correct?
That's
And
correct.
and that you've substituted sex in essence for love, and as we know, it hasn't been exactly satisfying for you.
That's right. That's correct.
Okay. And on a deeper level, you and I know that what we really, really want is we want to love and be loved. And sex could be a beautiful part of that. It's just that when sex becomes a drug and it becomes kind of like a throwaway commodity, then it doesn't really go with bonding and attachment and security and secure attachment, which Dr. John Bowlby did a lot of research on. And it is pretty clear, right, that you're doing a what the Freud in terms of the type of insecure attachments that you've been engaging in, correct?
Yes. Yes. Correct.
Right. Okay. So let's just kind of spell out the goal. What is your goal? I was going to be a poet here. What is the goal of your soul? What does your soul want?
I want to be and feel pure again and feel whole because I don't feel like myself. Um, Even like when I'm engaging in these sexual activities,
Okay.
like I feel like a part of me is not even there. Like a part of me is there, part of me is not even there. Like I'm not, I'm not really there. Um,
Okay.
and I want that's what my goal is to like be in my body again, like be whole, a whole person again, and be relationship material. Like even if I don't, even if I don't, meet that person that I want to spend the rest of my life with,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the person who can be that type of person.
That
That
is That is so
yeah,
beautiful the way you put that, that you want to be that person. And if you're fortunate enough to meet a person that can join you in that level of commitment and intimacy and safety, then at least let's prepare you to be that person.
yes,
Okay. And so, one thing we know for sure is that drugs are powerful, sex is a drug, sex is powerful, and sometimes it's more powerful than things that are needing to be worked on, like the development of a relationship, because the development of a relationship is not is it?
No, no.
So you can't just glue people together or put two bodies together and have an orgasm and call that a relationship. That's not a relationship. And so what is a relationship? I think mind, body, soul. So that there's some sort of a synchronicity there between your mind and how you think, your philosophy, and of course there's a sexual attraction to the person. Undeniably, that's important. And then on a safety, on a soul level, you want somebody who is going to honor you, protect you, make you feel important, make sure that your feelings are considered, and so on and so forth. So these are the ingredients for a healthy relationship. And given that your blueprint went pretty wrong in that your father wasn't in the picture, your mother also, and then your mother smothered you on top of it, so there was a tendency to maybe want to push away on some level, and then you had the history of the molestation. So all of that put together, and so does it make sense to you that you would be afraid of attachment and that you would want to hold love at bay?
Yeah. And if I could say something, one of the main things that I noticed, like when engaging, having these encounters with all of these different people, these different men, I noticed that because not all of them are just wanting to be quick flings. That's not always the goal. Some people I have tried to date,
okay,
and thought it was going somewhere, and then they ghosted, and it because and I stayed there for a long time. It's like when someone leaves, like when somebody, it takes a while for somebody to get over a breakup, but for me, I feel like it takes double, triple the time. For me, it takes years because I always go over in my mind like all the things that's wrong with me. And I think like, oh, that person must have seen this. He must have seen how messed up I am. They must have seen how dysfunctional I am. They must have got a glimpse.
And remind us what your negative core belief is about yourself.
That I'm unwanted, ugly. That's my core belief, that I'm unwanted.
Okay, so every time somebody ghosts you, every time the relationship does not end up in a healthy attachment, your go-to button is that you're unwanted and ugly, and what was the other thing?
Defective, like just naturally, what do you call it? Kind of like the way you're born, like I'm defective.
Defective.
Something's wrong with me.
Okay, so that at the core of you have this fear that you're ugly, you're unwanted, and at the core you're defective, and that when people pull away, they are pulling away because you're ugly, unwanted, and defective. Do you see how core beliefs work?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to work very hard on dismantling your core belief, because children always, or I would say most of the time, buy in to the message that the parents hand down to the child. So that message from your father was what?
I guess unwanted. I never really thought much about it because there were, the way it was explained to me, there were reasons that left that didn't have so much to do with just leaving. Just I don't want to be with you anymore. There was other reasons. But I never really, because I didn't grow up with him, I never met him, so it's like I didn't give it much thought at all. So I didn't even feel like I was, at least growing up, I didn't feel unwanted by my father. I just didn't think about it. It's kind of like how can you miss something that you never had? So
right.
So I never thought much about it, but I guess that is a core belief.
You know, that's a really good point. How can you miss something that you never had? I think part of it is that we have a fantasy of, as Carl Jung puts it, in the sense of collective unconscious, that we all have a figure in our mind, a mother figure, a father figure. We do have a call in. I'm going to take just a few call ins because we really have a lot of work in front of us. But do you mind if we take a call in, Max?
Of course not. Sure, it's fine.
Okay. So hi, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy and Max. Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Is this Julia?
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Okay. Do you have a question that you'd like to ask me or Max or both of us?
Yeah. Am I on air?
You are.
Okay. Yeah, well, first of all, I married my mother, and I have an 18-year-old son whose dad was a covert narcissist, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, passive aggressive. But he'd ask me questions like, why are you so sensitive? I'm only joking. I didn't mean it that way, baby. And, kind, and then turn around and be a total jerk. My son, who's now 18, I want to go back. If I would have taken the notes that I took and had YouTube video back in the day, I would have ran, not walked. Instead, I hung out my optimism pretty much.
Okay, so I have
a
a question for you. So you're beginning to connect the dots and you're beginning to see. So remember, the topic is sex addiction and the topic is the show. So so if you would be so kind as to ask a question that might be pertaining to Max, what we're doing, and the breakdown of the mind map, and then you're so welcome to call me and I'll do a 15-minute free consultation with you anytime, okay? And we could break down your situation, but please do ask a question that would pertain to this topic.
Sex addiction.
Yes, please.
Okay. My son came and told me that he's masturbating to the point where he had to go to the doctor, and they did MRIs, ultrasounds, and one urologist of 30 years said, it's in his head. I see this all the time in teenage boys. I insisted. They did the procedure, camera up the penis. Everything came back normal. So I guess it's psychosomatic. He has OCD as well.
Okay.
So if he's using that to divert his frustration, his anger, his rage at his dad, how can I help him if I'm the codependent?
This is perfect question for the show because when we engage in addictive masturbatory sex, which it sounds like your son is engaged in, then Max, you'd be the perfect person to answer this. Does this sound familiar to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so I think the question is the rage that he might be feeling toward his dad and the obsessive nature of his masturbation to the point where he's hurting himself. So what would you say to Julia? What you're thinking like a shrink a little bit more now. So what would you say to Julia about why he's doing this and what's at the core of it?
It's probably going back to like what you said last week, Dr. Judy, about like it's a cycle of trying to feel good. Like that's very pleasurable. So it's like that may be one of the very few or only forms of pleasure that he gets. It's like an outlet, a release that he gets. So because and once it's over, it's like which maybe prompted him to ask for or to talk to you about it, because that's I rarely hear that, like a boy actually going to his mother and like admitting that, but that shows that he doesn't that he feels that it's unhealthy. So the fact that he's kind of crying out for help shows that it's compulsive and it's something that he doesn't want to do.
Yes.
So that goes to show that it's an outlet. It's a release. He's trying to get
It's a release,
pleasure.
and you're right. It's a nonverbal communication. Symptoms are hieroglyphics that point to the cause. So if your ex-husband is a covert narcissist and doesn't have a lot of ability to bond, a lot of ability to empathize, then there's a disconnect. Can you see that? There's a disconnect between your son and your ex, and he's probably mixing sex with anger and release and then pleasure, and it's all mixed in there. And so I think by getting treatment and helping your son talk about it and literally release his feelings about it, instead of just releasing through his sexuality, he could start integrating, and as Max has been expressing, to become more of a whole person than just kind of compartmentalized into sexuality. So I'm going to continue with Max. Okay, was that helpful to you?
Yes, it was. How would the mind map help, Dr. Judy?
Because it'll locate the cause. So instead of his blaming himself for all of these symptoms and feeling the anger and projecting the anger, he can go through the cause, reprocess the feelings, get the anger out, verbally get the anger out, therapeutically get the anger out. Then he doesn't have to convert it to all of these symptoms. And then I want you to call me at the Psychological Healing Center, and then you and I will jump on the phone and discuss it. Okay?
Sounds good. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Of course, my pleasure. Okay, so Max, thank you. So Max, you understand this, intimately you understand this kind of a release, and the anger is in there and the sexuality is in there, but it doesn't really grow you. It doesn't advance you because it just creates this, what the Freud pattern, it's endless. Okay, and keeping in mind your goal to become integrated as a human being. And I really love the way you described it, that you want to be a person that is relationship material. And a person who's relationship material is a person who's integrated. And when we're injured, we're fractured. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of like if you look at panel 2 for a moment and just use it as a metaphor, it looks like a cracked piece of glass. We fracture, our psyches get fractured, we react to the wounds, and then, of course, panel 3, we encode them. And you encoded some pretty ugly things in there, literally that you're ugly, that you're unwanted, and that you're defective. So as a result of that, can you see how you would want to repair the hurt?
Yes.
And you want to repair it quickly. So what's the salve that's going to repair the hurt quickly?
I guess I'll have to ask you that.
Okay, and we're going to remember this because you're going to record it in your defense mechanism panel. The quick fix, your quick fix is to hook up. Okay, so for that moment, you're getting pleasure. For that moment, you're getting attention. For that moment, you're in a fantasy relationship. For that moment, you're thinking maybe that person will call you back. Maybe something good will come of it. It's just that from a building blocks foundational point of view, you're not building a relationship. So can you see how that non-building of the relationship is going to fall into chaos? Panel number 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So when something's not properly built, think of a house. If it's foundationally not built correctly, you could put the walls up, you could put the beams up, you could put the windows in. But, when the roof goes on and everything isn't structurally sound, boom, crash, bang, chaos, falls apart. So this is sort of like our psyche, right? So did you have a mother that was solid and a father that was solid? Did you have safety? Did you have consistency? Did you feel protected? And we all know the answer to those questions. And so therefore, your solid foundation was never built.
Right.
Got it? And you're absolutely right that what you want to do is you want to build a solid foundation. So you want to be the person that will vet people correctly and pick a partner who is relationship ready, and you want to be relationship ready. You don't want to be the abandoner. You don't want to be someone who doesn't regard people's feelings. You don't want to be casual. You know, after all, we're not sardine cans. We can't just open up our mind, body, soul, let people traipse on in, and then just casually brush it off. As you said, it takes you years to get over a relationship.
Yes.
Okay, so go to panel number 4, and we could track a little bit of that chaos, or a lot of that chaos. So what is the fallout material of this? Your wounds of childhood and the negative core beliefs that you believe about yourself and the world. So just kind of go through the fallout material.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it? What's the chaos that you're now experiencing in your life?
The chaos, I say, it's like there's been so much damage done, like, over the years. It's like there's so much damage. It's like I've lost, because and the reason I can say I want to feel like I'm relationship material again, because it was a point in time where I did feel that way. And but I sacrificed or threw away like a lot of my values and my dignity, self-respect, self-esteem, all of that on people who I didn't vet or didn't I treated it flippantly, and I gave it to people who didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They didn't deserve it. And so as a result of it, you kind of went gambling. You thought, oh, okay, so we'll let this person into my life, except that you didn't vet the person. You didn't get to know the person. You didn't get to know the person's character. And you then put yourself in harm's way. And as a result of that, it destabilized your mood, caused a lot of depression, anxiety, in the form of abandonment, embarrassment, disappointment, hurt, and of course a re-triggering of your negative core beliefs that you're unlovable, you're unworthy, you're defective, and you're ugly. Right. And this just continued on.
And at this point, and at this point, I feel like damaged goods. It's like I almost feel like nothing can be done with me. Like I can't be salvaged.
I hear it in your voice. Right. I hear it in your voice. There's a hopelessness there because we believe that we are our symptoms. Got it? We actually believe. And I'm telling you, we're not our symptoms. We're at the effect of our symptoms. So everything that you're feeling, experiencing, thinking about yourself and the world is a result of panels 1, 2, and 3. Childhood wounds, reactions, and encodings. Okay? So this is the effect of, and through the process, I'm teaching you to be the cause of. But right now, we're still tracking the damages. Okay? We're looking at the system gone wrong. So logically, can you see that you've been at the effect of the childhood wounds? So this is not you. This is not your natural state. This is not your authentic self. This is you at the effect of all the damages. It's kind of like, this is maybe a silly metaphor, but think about yourself as a beautiful new car, okay? And then the car gets smashed around, and accidents happen and so on and so forth. And now the car is this wrecked car. And you're thinking, I am that wrecked car. And I'm saying, well, the wrecked car is a result of not knowing the rules of the road and not understanding how to necessarily drive, to drive the car and take care of the car and to make sure that you drive safely and proactively, right? And I remind you that you didn't have to be that wrecked car if you knew some of the rules, and you could have then continued to be that whole new shiny car. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, it does. But can I, if I may ask you a question?
Sure.
Um, it's a challenge for me to see what you're saying about it's not you, it's your programming, so to speak, or it's not you, it's your wounds or whatever. That's the challenging part for me to separate that, or for me to believe that, because, for instance, you have a lot of people who have been through worse than I've been through, but they still came up with their integrity, their dignity. They never went down the road of addiction or, disgrace. So it's like that's because, what do you say? That's because that's who they are at the core. They're like good people at the core.
See,
But
there you go.
What about people
there you go, thinking that you're faulty. Okay, so why do some people look less scarred over and scathed by their horrible experiences? It is true that some people look like they survived the train wreck, so to speak, a lot better, and in order to understand that, we have to understand a lot of things, like, did they have some enlightened witnesses along the pathway? Did they tap into some wisdom masters that they emulated? Did they have any other outside support? So you could see it's a case-by-case basis. So in your case, all you're seeing is, wow, look at me. I'm in chaos. I'm all wrecked up. I'm just damaged goods. I'm unsalvageable. Okay, so this is where we're at in our process. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and you're very wrapped up in this view of yourself, and you're very wrapped up in it. That, let's just say it. Oh, Max, you're a hopeless case. That is what you're thinking, correct?
Yes.
This might as well just throw it in the trash can.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's what I think.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now, what if I said to you that going forward, not today, but in a little while going forward, if you knew how to vet people, if you knew a better game of life, if you knew how to treat yourself and others, that when you rolled the new dice of life, better outcomes would come from that. Can you buy into that?
Honestly, not at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so let's make it even more simple. So let's say you're playing basketball, but you don't know any of the rules, and you never get any of the balls through the net, and you're just breaking all the rules, and you never score a point because nobody taught you. Is it fair to say that you didn't score anything because nobody taught you the rules?
Yeah, that's safe to say, yes. That's correct.
Right? That makes sense. And then you can call yourself a loser all you want, or you could say, gee, I never scored any points because I didn't even know the game. No idea.
Yeah.
And then you say, and then somebody comes along and says to you, wait a minute, don't say that you're a bad basketball player. Don't put that on yourself. Don't call yourself a loser. Don't say that you're garbage material in the world of basketball. Let's just say, hey, you need to learn the rules of the game. And so what if you got busy learning the rules of the game, and what do you think? Do you think you'll still be stuck in thinking that you're a loser and you're a horrible basketball player once you learn the rules of the game and you start scoring those points? Then what's going to happen?
When you start you're gonna start feeling better about the game.
Yeah, because you're going to have successes. Because in this new game of life that you're playing, you will understand how to position your body. You'll understand how to think about the rules of the game. You'll understand, and then through that process, you will learn. And through that process, you'll have a different outcome. So that's what I'm saying to you, is that you can sit there all you want and blame yourself and be angry at yourself that you have bad outcomes, but I'm just saying to you, you have bad blueprint. The bad blueprint, you're not going to build a good house.
Let's see.
You see? Okay? So pretty soon we're going to be demolishing the blueprint. That's the way it has to go. Got it? Okay, so if you go right, okay, we've got to take this blueprint, a faulty blueprint that was based on very, very poor information for a good game of life, and we've got to get a new blueprint in there instead. So if you go to panel number 5, you will see that panel number 5 metaphorically represents our defenses and our boundaries. So what happens when we're sexually violated? What happens when we're verbally violated? What happens when we're abandoned? What do you think happens to our boundaries? Do you think our boundaries are solid or loose?
Loose.
Loose. So do you think your boundaries have been solid or loose?
Loose.
Exactly. So now I'm coming into your picture and saying, you know, we have to fortify your boundaries. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So that means that not anybody and everyone can get a pass through to your mind, body, soul. No way. You hold them back and say, hello, who are you? What are you all about? Let me get to know you. What are your goals in relationships? What do you like? How do you treat people? How do you treat animals? How do you treat yourself? Okay? And you study the person. And they don't just automatically get to have at you. That's just not going to be so.
True. And the reason I don't do that is because I feel like this is that's as good as it's going to get. Like I'll never, and I always go in with that mindset of, you know, I guess, you know, since I have been dealing with this, you know, not feeling like I'm relationship material, that's what I go in thinking. It's like, oh wow, like I didn't even think I could score that well. It's like, so it's like I don't feel like I have that many options. So it's like I might as well take.
Right, you're thinking.
You know, I might as well take what I can get.
There it is. So now you're going to scrape the bottom of the barrel because that's all you're worth. And if you get a little bit of joy, then congratulations.
Right.
Right? And then that affects your self-esteem and infects your self-esteem because that's, again, a reinforcement of that's all you deserve because you're just garbage anyway. You're a loser, garbage, not lovable, and ugly.
Right.
Right? And so,
even that person,
mm-hmm.
and even when that person even leaving, like I'm already settling, and then when that person like throws me away, it's like that just confirms like, well, I'm really not I'm really not worth it.
Exactly. And I'm telling you that there's a confusion in thinking right there. Okay? So let's straighten out the thinking. The thinking is not that, oh wow, that person left me. The confusion is, what were they even doing there to begin with? Got it?
Yes.
Okay, so if I let somebody into my life that's not really a healthy person, then why would I be so surprised that that they act disrespectfully or they don't have empathy and they don't regard my feelings? What's the big surprise? correct?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, and that's because parents set the bar. And I'll say it again, and I'll say it again. Parents set the bar. So in your case, your parents set a low bar. People can fondle you, people can abandon you, people can verbally abuse you because the parents did that to you. Your parents did that to you. And since your parents did that to you, and they're supposed to be the most loving and caring and family people in your life, then what's the rest of the world going to be like?
I see.
You see? Okay, so this is an error. This is an error in conclusion. You conclude that they're leaving you because of your core belief of being ugly and what was the other one? What were the other ones? There were
Inherently defective.
Defective. Okay, and I'm saying that there's an erroneous conclusion there. So you invite somebody into your space that's already not healthy, and then they do what they do and leave you bleeding. And so I'm saying, what's the surprise? What's wrong with this picture?
Right.
Okay, so the answer is, what were they doing there to begin with? And I loved what you said earlier, which is that you want to be relationship material. So sometimes that means that you're going to have to be alone longer, I mean really alone, for the right person. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, and I know that that's the truth, but it's very that's very hard.
Okay, now
Like,
I'm not saying don't have friends. Yeah. I'm not saying don't hang around with people that you enjoy. I'm saying put your heart guard on. Put your heart guard on. Panel number 5. Permeable membrane, semi-permeable membrane, non-permeable membrane. You have been too permeable. And sexual abuse makes us permeable. Being abused makes us permeable because we let people just come on in and take advantage of us, and that's what we know. And so now I'm asking you to consider shifting your permeability to a little less permeable and something which I refer to as a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, remember Biology 101 where the biology teacher talked about cell membranes, and if they're too closed, what happens to the cell if they're all locked down?
So what happens to the cell?
Yeah, if there's nothing going in, nothing going in.
That I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so think about it. There's a cell in your body and no oxygen can flow into your cell, no nutrients can flow into your cell. What's going to happen to that cell?
No, so it's going to die.
It's going to die. Okay, now the opposite. What if you have a cell in your body and everything flows through? The good, the bad, the poison, the anything goes. What's going to happen to that cell?
It's probably going to die as well.
Exactly. And what about the semi-permeable cell, which is the cell that discriminates? So it'll let in the good and keep out the bad.
Yeah, the cell's going to live.
And that's what you're going to develop. You're going to develop a semi-permeable membrane. So when I, quote, threaten you with the idea of shutting down your membrane, you're up in arms going, I'm going to die, I'm going to be alone, I'm going to be abandoned, it's going to bring up those feelings. And I'm saying, no, I didn't say non-permeable, I said semi-permeable. Discriminatory.
Well,
got it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you're going to learn to do. So in the last few minutes, we're going to start in, okay, we'll continue this next week, but we're going to start in with a damage list, a because of you list of why you're permeable in your membrane, why you're abandonment prone, why you let people into your life who use and abuse you, why it is that you suffer in this manner. And we're going to go back to the cause, which is always what?
The parents.
Yes, and I don't say fault. I'm careful not to say fault because the parents were also caused by their parents and their parents and their parents. I also think parents need to be more responsible for cleaning up their psyche and becoming more responsible to become emotionally healthy before they have children. So I'm not absolving people of that process because we have to, or else we're going to pass down our psycho inheritance with the emphasis on psycho to the next generation. So for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to start making a damage list of all the ways in which your mother damaged you. So let's do that right now. Take out your mind map journal and you could start recording damages that your mother created that you are left with. So start speaking and writing. What might those be?
Okay, Mom, because of you, I feel crippled because I was smothered and I'm not able to function like most men my age. Out in life, out in the real world, because, I wasn't given the tools. And Mom, because of you, I also feel neglected. I have the core belief of neglect, of feeling like I'm not important because of how you neglected me as a child. And Dad, because of you, I feel unwanted and abandoned because you were never there. And you left to my mother before I was born. And so now I'm very reactive and I'm very fearful of being abandoned. And Mom, because of you, I'm always feeling taken advantage of and being taken advantage of because you didn't teach me healthy boundaries. That's all I can really think of.
Okay, perfect. So can you understand how important it is to have that recognition that something unhealthy floated into your psyche, floated into your world, had nothing to do with you, and it had everything to do with the cause. And so once you start recognizing that this is not you, this is not your natural state, what can begin to happen?
You can start to let the light in. And believe that I'm worthy again.
Okay, and you're not the first and you're not the last person to buy into parental messages. As a matter of fact, it was so obvious when I was leading the group last weekend that everybody in that room bought into the verbal and nonverbal messages that their parents left them with. And it's very rare that a child will stand up to their parents and question them and say, Mom, Dad, you're out of your mind. You're so inappropriate. What is wrong with your thinking? How can you treat me like that? How can you parent me like that? There's something going on with you and you need some help. How many children do you know that would dare to open their mouth that way to their parents?
Not many.
Not many, okay? And so in this process of tracking the damage is we're beginning to finally separate out what happened to us and who we are, because who we are is not what happened to us, but we think it is. We think we're the garbage. We think we're the loser. We think. Again, it's the best sales job. It's the best buy-in. Whatever the parental message is, we just buy in, okay? So it's really, really important to start separating this out. And as you said, as you start to separate out and say, Mom, because of your smothering me, Mom, because of your neglect, because Dad, you left Mom, this is the impact it had on me. When you begin to do that, you're no longer it. You don't no longer have to identify with it. You can identify it, which is the problem and the message and the treatment, but you don't have to say that this is who I am. You can say, this is what was done to me. This is how it affected me. I see it now. I see the cause and effect. Okay?
Yes.
So I want you to continue with that list. And then when we come back on air next week, which will be Thursday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we will continue this because of you. And this is the mind map journey to let the poison out and separate out cause and effect. So we're going to continue to work on separating this out. And in the meantime, I want you to think about your own words to yourself, which is that you are so important to yourself now that you want to make yourself relationship ready, which means that you are going to have to consider that semi-permeable membrane and who you let in and who you don't let in.
Right.
Right? And also the way you treat people and the way you decide that you want to be the cause of better treatment of other human beings, which means that you're going to regard their mind, body, and soul, and that you will become a safe, relationally ready human being for someone who values that.
Right.
Okay, so we'll come back on air in a week and we will continue this. And just in the meantime, continue to work on your list of because of you, Mom, and because of you, Dad. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, any last minute comments or questions?
Yeah, there's one question.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of people believe that you can, there's a debate of whether you can have a long-term or long-lasting relationship, a lifelong romantic relationship with somebody who you slept with on the first night, so to speak. Like, what do you think about that? Can that happen? Like,
it happens. It happens. We know people who slept together and they're still together. My preference, if you can't tell, is to get to know the person, because it's kind of risky on all levels. It's risky health-wise. You don't know the sexual history of that person, especially if you're using unprotected sex. And it's just better to go into a relationship slowly than go in with eyes closed and then do your discovery later and go, oh my God, I didn't know that this person's a cheater. Oh my God, I didn't know this person's an alcoholic. Oh my God, I didn't know. Okay, so isn't it better to get all that information and do your due diligence, so to speak? Doesn't that make more sense?
Yeah. Yes.
So, why take risks? Especially as your self-esteem. How do you raise your self-esteem? You treat yourself with self-esteem. That's how you raise it. It's not a magical pill. It's, okay, I'm going to respect myself, therefore I'm going to take the time and vet people and understand them before I let them in. Okay?
All right. Okay.
Okay, so we'll talk next week and continue with your list. Okay, and do call in, same time, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And thank you so much once again for sharing with me, with the audience, your mind map process out of sexual addiction.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, good night, and I'm going to do the usual, Shrink the Tune. This is called Roxy Music. By Roxy Music, Love is the Drug. So here are the lyrics. It ain't no big thing to wait for the bell to ring. It ain't no big thing, the toll of the bell, aggravated spare for days. I troll downtown, the red light place. So it sounds like somebody is waiting for the bell to ring. Let's see why. Jump up, bubble up, what's in store? Love is the drug and I need to score. Showing out, hit and run. Boy meets girl where the beat goes on. Stitched up tight, can't shake free. Love is the drug, got a hook on me. So sounds all wonderful, and then all of a sudden it's a hook. Oh, catch that buzz. There's the high, there's the addiction. Love is the drug I'm thinking of. Oh, can't you see love is the drug for me? Oh, late that night, I parked my car, staked my place in the singles bar. So can you see the desperation and the loose boundaries and, they're just waiting for the next person to score with? Face to face, toe to toe, heart to heart as we hit the floor. So there's no vetting here. There's just pure sexual passion. Lumbered up, limbo down, the locked embrace, stumble round. I say go, she says yes. No boundaries, right? Dim the lights, you can guess the rest. Oh, catch that buzz. Love is the drug I'm thinking of. Love is the drug, got hook in me. Oh, catch that buzz. Love is the drug I'm thinking of. Oh, can't you see? Love is the drug. So when drugs are involved, boundaries go down, the vetting stops, and the immersion into the sex and the high of the sex brings everything back around to a WTF, and it just repeats, and then there's no real building of a relationship. There's no stability. Foundationally, it just goes into panel 4, 5, and 6. Chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And nothing grows. So I will see you here next week. Same time, same place. UBN Radio, Dr. Judy WTF. And this is a call-in show, so feel free to call in. And you're always welcome to call for a free consultation and partake in the Mind Map individual therapy, the Mind Map seminar, Mind Map video series, and we have a lot of tools for you to journey from, through, to, out of this psychological prison into the freedom and into your light. Good night, everyone.